threw down 2 days live stream, a little down, a little dinner. We got an event planned, Q4. Stay tuned. We're going into the events business. Robbie, Andy, the boys. Shout out.
2 straight days, live stream straight from permissionless to Rollup TV. Coming for the #1 spot. Don't wait up. Trick or treat. The Satoshi Nakamoto is here to eat. Are we live? Guys, tech issues today, Halloween curse. We're going to try and do our best. We're here. We're live, I think. At this point, I might be a ghost. I might be a ghost of Halloween. But we are live. I think we're good. So we're going to get the show rolling. We've got a great show for you today. We're getting off to a little bit of a late start, but that's okay. We're going to bring you an X402 special. We're going to be learning about this new standard that we're seeing happening between AI agent coordination. This is something I'm particularly excited about. Then we're going to go to OverHerd, our friend Sherpa, who we had a great time in Vermont at base camp. We're going to speak with him on everything going on at OverHerd, and then we're going to wrap up with 𝘗𝘳𝘠𝘕 from Offchain Labs. He was the leader, the steward behind the deal with Robinhood and Arbitrum. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with our first guest from Coinbase. We're going to bring you live Eric from Coinbase for our next episode of AI Supercycle. He's going to be here explaining X402. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, GM. We are live with our friend Eric from Coinbase talking about the X402 revolution. Eric, this is our AI Supercycle segment powered by 𝘵𝘂. Recently, 𝘵𝘂 has partnered with Zcash. They're doing 𝘵𝘂 Intense, and all of this is bringing more composability to the ecosystem. It's really, really cool to see. We're also looking for composability amongst the AI agents to really enable the agentic economy. So we've heard a lot about MCP. We've heard about agent interoperability. We've heard about agents paying one another to ultimately use their tools for the power of good. X402 is a payment standard in the agentic economy. It's been floating around a lot, but personally, I don't know what to believe and what not to believe. Is it the greatest thing since sliced bread, or is this the reason AI is going to come and take over the world and kill us all? I don't know, but you're the expert, so that's why you're here. And we really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Of course. Excited to be here. 𝘵𝘂 is actually, they're always ahead of the curve with AI stuff. They were actually super early adopters of X402 and some of the most early people committing in the repo.
That it's awesome. Yeah. Could you, and you know, what I like to think of as 𝘵𝘂 is kind of like an AI company. The crypto is just something that, and we had Ilya on and basically, you know, told the story, invented the transformer, and then it was like, hey, we need a way to facilitate payments between these machines. Blockchains are the best way to coordinate that. And so X402 is a repo. 𝘵𝘂 was an early contributor. Now Coinbase is picking up some steam. Can we just start broad, and then maybe we'll hone in on some more unique things or specific things, but broad strokes. Could you give us an intro and explain it like I'm 5 here?
For sure, yeah. So I often call X402 the most standard that most boring standard that will ever exist. Um, the internet runs on standards that everyone agrees to just use. And so there's like HTTP and HTML and CSS and all these things that make it so we all speak a common language on the internet on like how to transmit data. So all X402 is a standard for how to transmit payment intent between different computers. And that's really it. It's a
Payment
way
intent
for a
between computers.
server to it's a way for a server to say like, "Hey, these are all the ways you can pay me," and a client to say, "Okay, I'm gonna pay you using this mechanism."
Okay.
And so it's super simple, but why it's powerful is because now there's a standard way for AI agents to pay each other or for your browser to pay a server. And now an AI can pay for an API or pay for content or do anything on the internet. And it's often been said there's like a great Mark Andreessen quote that the original sin of the internet is that they couldn't build payments into the internet. And
Mm.
this is like a thing Mark Andreessen spent a bunch of time in the 80s and 90s trying to do, but the tech just wasn't there yet. And so now we actually have great tech. Like modern blockchains are extremely performant. They're extremely good rails for payment. And so now we need to kind of link it back into the rest of the internet and not make it so crypto is kind of this thing that's sits to the side and is kind of like its own little world near the internet, but make it so you can natively perform a payment in any internet request.
Very cool. Very cool. I mean, look, I go on Amazon, I put in my credit card details, I buy things on the internet, but it's not that deep, right? It's like them taking my credit card and running it through a system in order to charge it. And maybe if it's a credit card and not a debit card, right, settlement occurs a little bit later. What does X402 unlock? Is it fundamentally going to change the way that you and I buy things on Amazon, or is it not really meant for that? It's meant for something more agentic than that.
Well, I'll give you the point in that the way that what is happening between your browser and Amazon servers is completely different than what happens when you buy something on Shopify and what happens on your browser with when it's interacting with Shopify servers. There's no like standards for like how these payments kind of actually move or declared. And so that means that it's really difficult for an AI to like buy something on Shopify and Amazon because as the developer you need to write an integration for Amazon and you need to write an integration for Shopify and you need to write an integration for Etsy and there's just so many different ways and so you end up with this huge fragmentation. And so as a human like maybe it unlocks more places where you can pay with crypto, but primarily it's about making it easier for computers to pay each other. And so an AI agent, instead of having to have like all of these different integrations with each different vendor, each different payment provider, can just understand X402 and then pay for anything that accepts X402.
Got it. Because from my perspective, it just looks like I'm entering some numbers into a text field, but it's not that simple.
Yeah, the text field is actually like hundreds, if not thousands, of lines of code that connect you to a server on Amazon side that is encrypting your credit card number and transmitting it to Amazon via some REST API. And like that's you're just seeing like the front of the internet, but there's all this stuff behind the scenes, all this stuff in the back of the internet that is fully hidden and is totally
Mhm.
custom from one website to the other. But the
Man,
way that you
yeah.
see it is the same. Like everyone agrees HTML, CSS, that's how you write websites. There's not like Amazon HTML and Google HTML, and you have to download a specific browser to visit Amazon and a different browser to visit Google. All the browsers agree on these standards, and then that makes it so we get this like beautiful, composable, open internet that anyone can launch a website and it'll work on any human's browser, which is kind of a miracle if you think about it. That
Yeah.
you so that we're trying to do that, but for payments.
Got it. Okay. I mean, you've been tweeting a lot about X402. This is something that has really taken off in the last, weeks to months. There's been other standards that have tried to link together these agents, but X402 seems like it's kind of the leader right now. It's really pushing and it's got a lot of momentum behind it. What is unique about X402 relative to some of the other standards that are out there? Is it just it's deeper, it's more comprehensive? What is the unique advantage that X402 gives us that something like MCP doesn't?
Well, I think that's kind of the beauty of X402 is it complements all these other standards,
Mm,
right? And so we're in this era where we all know agents are going to become a bigger and bigger part of the internet, and they're going to be this new like economic actor on the internet that needs to do stuff. And so MCP is really a standard around tool use. It makes it so your AI can use tools correctly. Then you have things like A to A, which standardizes how agents can communicate. And X402 is just a standard for how do you transmit money, how do you transmit value. And so you can actually use X402 alongside MCP or A to A, and as your agent is using a tool, it can pay for access to that tool with X402. And as an agent is talking to another agent via A to A, we actually worked with Google and Lowe's on a showcase of this. You can actually have your agent pay another agent in a very standard way, where all these agents understand, oh, we all just use X402 for the payment, and we may communicate via some other standard, but we'll all just use X402 for the payment. And I think the reason for that is X402 is actually just really simple. Like, it doesn't try to solve every problem at once. It's really simple, and tries to just be like the lowest layer of infrastructure, and lets you add on more complexity as you need it, versus forcing you to do something really complicated right up front.
And it's not necessarily a crypto thing, right? Is it because it's more than just crypto payments? Is that right, or is it only stable coins?
Right now, it's only crypto payments and
Okay.
stablecoins. And that's because I think stablecoins are the best way to move money on the planet right now.
Mhm.
But what we want is for X402 to really be like an open, neutral standard. And that means that eventually, I suspect we'll have fiat payments as part of X402. And what X402 really wants to do is create like an open playing field for competition to occur. And if you as a consumer want to pay with stablecoins, great. If you want to pay with fiat, great. If you as a merchant want to only accept stablecoins, great. Ultimately, it should be consumer choice that leads to the emergence of how money actually moves.
Very cool. Okay. And so how do you anticipate that this is going to evolve and ultimately get integrated into these systems?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is we're actively in the process of moving X402 into a foundation.
Okay.
It'll be like, a very not crypto-y foundation. It'll be like, much more akin to like how open source projects uh, are foundations, like PyTorch or the Linux kernel
Mhm.
or Kubernetes. These are examples of like foundations that govern software projects. Because if people are going to hitch their horse to the wagon, they want like certain assurances. They want to know they're not going to get rugged if they adopt the technology. And from there, I think we're going to see just like an explosion of adoption, both in the crypto world and in the Web 2 world, where I think X402 is probably going to be the first time a billion people use crypto for something.
Very cool. Man, I mean, this is huge because, this is an open standard. Are you the founder of X402? Because it kind of has like Satoshi-like beginnings. It feels like immaculate conception, just kind of came from nowhere. But there was really people that were early contributors. You were one of them. You mentioned Nero was one of them as well. Where did this thing ultimately come from? How did it go from, like, obviously we've all said, and it's easier said than done, we've all said, like, look, we should all be able to coordinate agents and pay one another on the internet. But how does that actually come into a real thing?
Yeah, I'm the author, so I designed X402. I wrote the initial SDK with some help from my team. I designed the protocol. X402 started actually back in almost a year ago. Before I rejoined Coinbase, I was thinking about, what did I want to spend my time doing? And one of the things that occurred to me is like, oh, this is X402, by the way. It's not the first attempt to create an internet native payment protocol. There's been a
Right.
bunch of attempts. And I had some time off, and I did some research and went and read all of those protocols, and I was like, oh, I have an alternative take to all of these. I think each one of them does like some little part differently than I think it should be done.
Mhm.
Um, and then I was interviewing at Coinbase, and I was talking to Brian Armstrong, and I was like, hey, I think we should do this thing. And then Coinbase has this program internally called Next Bets that is like a way for like people to surface ideas within Coinbase that should be worked on, and then they can get funded. And Brian said, hey, like there's a team that had pitched a next bet that sounds kind of similar to what you're talking about. And so when I joined, I kind of took over that next bet, and then uh, literally wrote the spec and first implementation of X402 in a weekend, based on kind of all this research I had done before rejoining Coinbase. And the team has helped me polish it up and make the SDKs more robust. But X402 as it exists today is fundamentally very similar to what I wrote in that weekend.
Man, that's and so was when you're thinking about like the unique things, like you said, these things have been tried before, they didn't really catch on. What was it that you did in a weekend? Like there's a 0 to 1 moment. It wasn't, spending brute force 1,000 hours doing the thing. No, it was just some light bulb moment that you had. What made the difference?
It's not just, like a weekend, right? I find for me, engineering is like I think about an idea and then it kind of percolates in the
Right.
background for a
Right.
couple months, and then one day it's just ready to pop out, right? Um, I think there's a lot of like little design decisions with
Okay.
X402, like one using signatures and not requiring gas on the spender, I think was a really big decision. Uh, Understanding that from the start it needed to be neutral. It couldn't just be like a base thing or a Solana thing. It needed to be agnostic to the underlying mechanism of payment, and be any blockchain should be able to be used. Any fiat method in future should be able to be used. Understanding that there's different logical ways that you want to move money. If money is truly digital, it's you want to be able to represent things that are more complex than, hey, I'm just giving you $5. And so I think
Mm.
these are like some of the decisions I made that have so far held up relatively well. But I think, in full candor, it's again, X42 is not a new idea, right? It's
Mhm.
an idea whose time has come.
Right.
We've been wanting to have internet native payments since the 90s. It's just there was no reason,
Mhm.
because once we got HTTPS, entering your credit card into a site and then having it save your credit card is like actually not the worst checkout experience for a
Mhm.
human. It works relatively well. It's annoying the first time.
Right.
But now you have these AIs popping up that are, it's like significantly a worse experience for them. And you
Mm.
kind of need a 10x better solution to break kind of the entrenchment of how things like the internet that are at such scale work. And so AI is this like force that makes it so that this is the right time to adopt this kind of standard, and for something like this to actually get like used.
Yeah. What is your wildest dream about how this could manifest and ultimately evolve and becoming entrenched and ingrained into our everyday lives or into our systems?
I tweeted yesterday, X402 number of transactions,
Yeah. So what
billion bald, trillion tattoo.
what does that mean?
Well, it means I'll shave my head if we get to once we get to a billion transactions, and I'll get a tattoo once we get to a trillion transactions. Uh,
Where are we now?
about 3.5, 4 million. I haven't checked this morning, but that's up 3 million in like a week.
Eric.
X42's been out since like March, so we're
Oh,
in there.
okay. So now it's starting to pick up some traction. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So what in the last few months is when I've really seen it take off. What was there any sort of inflection point or any one integration that really spurred a lot of momentum?
It's interesting because we had this great like 30% week over week growth for like
Okay.
6 months, and I was like, wow, this is like a Y Combinator startup in growth, and then we hit
Yeah.
this wall.
Uh,
I'd like to think it's you just hit a critical mass of crypto Twitter noticing, and then people just start building more stuff, and then people see the people building stuff, and then you get the snowballing effect.
mhm,
And so I think last week we saw someone build a token launcher on top of X402, and then the token went giga viral, and then all of crypto Twitter saw it. And then the thing that was really gratifying to me is that a bunch of people saw X402 and actually started building stuff and understood the technology, and uh, took the time to like build APIs that you could pay for with X402 or new clients. And it didn't just turn into, all token launcher meta. Like
mhm,
there's definitely some token launcher meta, but
mhm.
we saw like real interesting novel things being built using the technology that wouldn't have been possible prior to X402.
Very cool. Eric, when you hit, and not if, when you hit a billion transactions, will you come on the show and we can shave your head live?
I'm gonna have to check with my comms team. I'm sure they might have something they want to do there as well. But maybe we can do kind of like a co-produced thing.
That would
But
be
I think
amazing.
like genuinely, I think that within the next decade, there's going to be more economic transactions from AI than there are from humans per day.
Are we already there, or where are we at on that? Because people have also said, that this is coming.
Yeah, we're definitely not there yet. We're definitely not there yet. Like the internet is so big,
Yeah.
so big, and but the way we get there is through things like X402 that make it just so much easier for AI to pay for stuff.
Mhm.
But it's inevitable, right? Like
Yeah.
think about how many times computers send messages to computers that humans have no part of.
Right.
That's just going to be like for every request that you make from a browser, I'm willing to bet a thousand happen autonomously between computers.
Right. Right. So a
So there's gonna
thousand
be
to a
sorry, go for
thousand
it.
to one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's roughly in that range. Yeah.
Okay. And right now they're sending messages back and forth. They're passing packets. They're doing this thing. What changes once we add money to that stack? Once machines are paying one another, once they're exchanging money, but machine to machine, how does that change things from your perspective?
Everything that is like a composition of different services right now on the internet requires a human to be in the loop. So if you want to write a program and you want access to, like, let's say like a weather API,
Yeah.
you as a human need to go and get an API key for that API or for that product, and you need to manually integrate it into your program, and then finally it can access the weather. But if you can, and why that is because there's no good way to give the weather API value for the data that it's providing you,
Hmm.
right? The API key is tied to your credit card, and then they bill your credit card at the end of the month.
Right.
And so all of that human stuff is actually just because we have lost the transmission of value. And if you make value transmission instant, now you as an AI can just say, I want weather data, and just pay it a cent to get that weather data. There's no kind of like, oh, I must like go and get the API key and do the integration. I These AIs are really good at using APIs. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you give it the way to pay for an API, now you get kind of a fully composable internet where anything that has value is inherently gated on the internet, whether it's content or tools or anything else. And so now AIs can just punch through those paywalls and punch through those gates and use those pieces of content or use those valuable tools without a human needing to get involved, which makes the AIs like way, way better, way more useful.
Right. Yeah. There's less slippage, if you will, or like their flywheels don't get slowed down.
Yeah,
Um,
way less friction in the system, and now
right,
you can
right.
have AIs that like dynamically do things that you didn't think they
Mhm.
could.
Yeah. Okay, Eric. Rapid fire. A few last questions as we come to a close here. Um, Call to action. What are the applications that you would like to see built on X402?
Ooh, great question. X402 is really a double-sided market, right? Or a two-sided market. There's supply and demand. Supply are the people who are selling content or tools, and the demand are people who are using content and tools.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, my job with X402 is largely ping-ponging back and forth between those two sides of the market and activating one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So right now I'm in activate demand side of that ping pong. And so if you're a builder, if you're an engineer, if you're a product person, go vibe code, go engineer, go build something that is like a novel way for agents to use things that accept X402.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, and the flip side of that, if you're a user, what is and maybe broader than just X402, what are the AI tools out there you find most useful and the everyday person can incorporate into their AI stack to become more productive or a higher powered human?
So we launched this product called Payments MCP a couple weeks ago. And what it does is it's an MCP server that you can integrate into Claude. And it gives Claude a wallet, and it gives Claude access to the X402 discovery layer, and it gives Claude the ability to pay for anything with X402. And this works with like a bunch of different LLM chat apps, not just Claude. And what it means is you can now have Claude pay to do stuff with X402 on your behalf. And so you can say, hey, Claude, make a research report for me about a thing, and it can search the internet, and then it can also pay for like a bunch of financial data APIs that accept X402 payment. And that means that like the report it generates for you is higher fidelity, better done because it has better data.
Mm-hmm.
And Claude gets its own isolated wallet. You can do spend controls. You can limit how much it'll spend for requests, and it makes your AI productivity like noticeably better.
So this is like I can say, "Hey Claude, go book me a flight," and it can go do that.
Yeah. There's actually I don't know if it's rolled out fully in the US, but there's actually a team that lets you purchase flights via trip.com with X402.
Wow. But I can also use this Claude integration.
I haven't tested that one specifically, but in
Okay.
theory, yeah.
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 Okay. Man. Okay. I feel like I had more. Man, This has been a really fun chat, Eric. I think I'm all out of questions, but I would love to have you back on again sometime soon because it feels like X402 is moving so fast that 3 months from now we could have an entirely new conversation, and it can, it can take a bunch of wild twists and turns.
Absolutely, yeah. More than happy to come back, and it was great chatting.
Yeah, awesome, man. Congrats on a great build, and keep up the good work. And this is really, really useful stuff, and very, very exciting to see X402 come to life and start to enable the payments economy and the machine economy at large. So, thanks, Eric. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
All right, man. Eric, you're a G. Appreciate you coming on, man. And we're gonna keep things rolling here. So, Eric, you're free to go in the back. See you hanging out. Really great conversation. I know I'm going to check out the Claude integration. I use a mix of ChatGPT and usually Gemini for research, Claude for some more like businessy type, build a presentation or make an SOP or this kind of thing. To integrate that in is huge. And so really, really cool to see this come to life. All right, guys, we're going to keep it rolling. We'll be right back. Our next guest is an interesting character. I played a round of golf with him in Vermont, and he is the founder of OverHerd. He also founded a really, really massive, really viral product a few years ago. You guys probably heard about it, but we're going to be talking more about it as well. Guys, we'll be right back with more on Rollup TV. Bang, we're back. All right, next guest is our friend. You guys haven't met him, but we've met him. He's a great guy. He is a non-first-time founder. He's got a really interesting story to tell. Super viral company and product that I was part of. I used it. I bet a lot of you who are watching and listening at home used it. And so we're going to bring up 𝘱𝑝𝗂, the founder of OverHerd, also the founder of Yik Yak. Let's bring him up. 𝘱𝑝𝗂. Ooh, there he is. 𝘱𝑝𝗂, you got the helmet on. You're looking good, brother. Is that a llama, if I'm correct, or an alpaca?
Alpaca. Thank you for the correct pronunciation. Yeah, it's often confused, but alpacas everyone loves them. So that's what I'm rocking.
I love it. I love it. Well, Sherpa, man, you have came a long way. Obviously, founder of 𝘗𝘂𝘂, which was giga viral. You can probably speak to the level of reach that you guys had, but I know it was on the scale of what I believe was either tens, if not hundreds of million monthly active users, which is a massive success. And you discovered some real things about the way that people connect with one another, especially through anonymous chat. And so, you've got quite the founder story. Now you're working on OverHerd, and man, just would love to let's start from the beginning. Please introduce yourself. It's the first time on the show, and I think our audience is going to be really interested to hear about how you've gone to start 𝘗𝘂𝘂, and then also now why you're choosing to build OverHerd.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, guys. A big fan of the show, so excited to be up here and share the builder stories from the war room. But yeah, about 10 years ago, was one of the co-founders of 𝘗𝘂𝘂𝘂. The initial idea of it was, how do you give every single person on college campus an equal voice? There was the quarterbacks of the football team, the popular meme pages, but there was also the nerds in the back of the classroom, me being one of them. And those people were never heard. You would just speak into the ether on social media, and you never got that chance. And the belief back then was, if you make every post anonymous, everybody has an equal voice, and posts can rise on merit alone. And that was the thesis of it back then. It evolved from a college basically project or for fun hack to an app that was used by tens of millions of people every single day. It was a wild ride 10 years ago. Learned a lot from viral growth, how to make apps actually hit scale, and taking the learnings from that and building OverHerd, which is inspired by it and to some extent, but leveraging the learnings and building on crypto rails actually solves some of the key issues we had, which were user moderation and then long tail user retention. So excited to be here and bringing it back in a different light.
Beautiful, man. I mean, can you provide some stats? I remember, you were telling me a little bit about it, but it was essentially hundreds of millions of monthly active users. You guys reached college campuses, and you were able to provide a voice where everyone was on an equal playing field because 𝘗𝘂𝘂𝘂 was anonymous. What did you learn? Right? What went well? What didn't go well? Yeah, man.
Yeah. So it's, the main learning was the format itself was insanely viral. So it was launched at a couple of colleges that were initially targeted where me and the founders went to school. And we saw that once we hit a critical mass on a specific university, whether that was a Greek life organization or a sports team, we could overtake an entire campus in a single day. And that in that era, very few apps have been able to do that. It went from like 30 in the App Store to #1, very, very quickly. And the reason for it was it really resonated with a lot of users. But it was also a double-edged sword. Some of the reasons for virality was it did cause a little bit of chaos, and we did not anticipate that level of chaos to be created. And there's a lot of investment on engineering, on moderation and tooling around that. And that was one of the issues, long tail, is that people didn't understand the power that comes with anonymity, and we're being reckless in addition to creating interesting content. So OverHerd actually solves that from the moderation perspective via community incentivized rewards. So users who report, so every post on OverHerd accrues value in the form of USDC based off how many views a post gets. So if a post is malicious and someone reports it and it's against our terms of service, which would either be hate speech or illegal content, the rewards from that post, no matter how many views it got, would be slashed from the creator and redistributed to the people who reported it, which has really created a nice moderation loop and created a very healthy foundation for the application itself. I lost you there. I think you're muted.
Yeah. What is the original monetization tool for the post? Is it on base and content coins? That's the idea. That's where incentives are generated and fees are generated, passed to the creator. But if it violates rules, all of that gets redistributed. Is that the idea?
No, so it's fundamentally different than content coins and what most of like crypto Twitter is familiar with trading fees and virality feeding it. So we take a very traditional, fairly boring Web 2 model advertisement and leverage the dollars from that, passing it back to the users. It's a business model as old as time, where brands are always willing to pay for attention. So if I have a top post on the app, let's say it's I love the Rollup or something, and it has 1,000 views on it, there would be an advertisement bidding on that post. What could be Circle, 𝘰𝘀𝘀, those are some of our advertisers. And the dollars that they are spending for that visibility flow directly back to the user. So it's a non-speculative revenue source, but just very sustainable, passive, and tied to that, not trading fees.
Beautiful. Awesome. And how has adoption been going? Like what are some user activity metrics that you guys have? How much in advertising dollars you guys bring into the platform? I'd imagine this is kind of a two-sided marketplace here. You need to get some creators coming on, some guys with reach to get some distribution, and then advertisers want to advertise on you. And you can monetize more. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. So we launched the product in June, initially as mobile applications to just kind of get it out into the wild. And school is not in progress in June. So it was basically purely our test grid. And we initially launched in Brazil, primarily because of a strong TikTok distribution reach there and some relationships I had. And so very, very slow starts over the summer. It's been growing very quickly month over month, around 40%. Now I have about 40,000 daily active users on the application, and around 200,000 monthly active, which puts us at, I believe, one of the largest, if not the largest, social fi app in crypto. Primarily made up of normies, not your typical crypto Twitter degen. And yes, the more users the product has, the more advertising dollars we make, which is kind of compounds on the flywheel, because more ad dollars we make, the more our users make, and it's a positive reinforcement there. Like to date, we've done, or like every single day can be between like $2,000 to $3,000 in ad revenue. So it's not massive, but it's not also insignificant, I would say.
Yeah. And so, I mean, there's a lot of learnings that you had from Yik Yak. And so, how do you intend on, give me 1 second, sure. But I think my thing I might have froze, Leo. Can we go stand by real quick? All right, guys, we're back. Thank you for bearing with us, or bulling with us, or alpacking with us today. It's been a little hectic. It's a Friday. It's Halloween. Sherpa is in his alpaca helmet. And so we were talking about, all of the success that you guys had at Yik Yak. You were able to get massive distribution, and now, you're solving a lot of those pain points with OverHerd. You learned a lot about, the social dynamic and how you were able to kind of level the social playing field. What stage are you guys at right now? You talked a little bit about the ad packages that you have available, and that's kind of more on, on the advertiser side, but you're also getting more creators onboarded onto the platform. How can people get on board, and what are the opportunities available for them to earn some of these advertising dollars that you guys have been able to generate?
Sure. So it's super easy to get on the platform. You just search OverHerd in the App Store. You can download it and start jamming, yapping, saying what you want. And depending on where you are in the world, there's more users or less, and that'll essentially determine how many views your post can get and how much you can earn. Differentiating from Yik Yak, we have a feature in the app called Herds, which is the easiest way to think about it, is like a subreddit where people can talk about specific topics, crypto, sports, confessions, etc. And those are no longer constrained to location, but opened up globally. And that's where a lot of like the bigger view posts come in. People can be earning up to like $50 a day there. It's nothing like you could earn as a creator coin, but it's just because the trading fees don't piggyback there. Mm-hmm. Some expansion that we're diving into, this is a little bit of alpha, haven't said this publicly, is we're actually going to be leveraging zk-TLS for like authenticated herds. So like an example that will probably be rolling to beta is basically anyone in the crypto industry could join a herd. So you could verify that you're a crypto builder, have a badge that you work at Binance, the Rollup, Coinbase, etc., but have the cover of anonymity to really create some interesting discussion points.
Wow.
And that's something I'm super excited about.
That is really cool, because you could verify that you are part of a certain circle with some credentials, but you don't fully give away you're not. This feels like WikiLeaks on crack. This feels like I can verify my involvement in a particular company, and then I can start to expose inside behavior about that company if it comes to that, and there's some sort of thing that occurs inside, and you need a way to trust people that they are inside. This is a way to do that.
Yes, this would be a way to basically give authenticity and credibility to anonymous things, and the content like this has never been possible in a trustless way.
Right.
So super excited to roll this out, and like outside of like a corporate version, like you can use it for like medical advice or something like Reddit. There's tons of like mom subreddits or doctors where people are in theory giving advice, but you don't know how credible they are, where you could actually leverage zk-TLS to then say, this is an actual pediatrician, or this is a dentist, and create these very unique discussion points while making the content creator and the responder feel safe, that their identity is protected.
Yeah. Wow. Man, we've got a segment on the show that we do once in a while. It's called Rumor Mill, where sometimes, people will text us things and we know who they are, but they don't want to be exposed. And so they'll, we'll kind of display their alpha up on the screen. But I'd imagine that we could do some really interesting things with broadcasting and shedding some more light on some of the things that are put forth in these herds, and they're done anonymously but verifiably. Mm-hmm. And whistleblowing is a little bit dark. Like it doesn't have to be, dark secrets that we're exposing. It can be like, there's some real alpha here and people want to talk about it and share it, but they're maybe not, Twitter is just maybe too public of a square in order to share some of these things. What are some other use cases that you see? Whistleblowing was just the most wild one that came immediately to mind, but what are some use cases that pop up in your mind when you're putting these things together?
Yes, I mean, controversial topics will definitely occur. That's just part of this existence of the internet. Like the medical advice or authenticity, I think, is another one. Yeah. Another great was like you could take like a Rate My Professor type website experience. Like no one actually knows what those users truly go to those school. You can have authenticity that people went to University of Alabama or went to Georgia, et cetera. You could have specific herds to just a company as opposed to overlapping. So you could have it basically becomes like a Glassdoor, and like Glassdoor had like a really big data leak a long time ago. And it's no longer trusted as like for job reviews, interviews, and leveraging the ZK tech, everything is now secured in a safe manner. So there's a lot, I think, on the corporate side, and also a lot on educational, and then just information in general. Like you could have an investing one too. Like you could have, in order to join the sub community, you must ZK proof you have $1 million in net worth. And I think the content that can be created, it will be the first time it's a forum like this has existed.
There's a project, I think it's called 2cents.money, and it does that. It's verifiable net worth, and you can effectively do some things like this and basically, you know, put out a prediction, right? But if you have a $10, you know, if you got $100 in your bank account, no one's really going to take it seriously. If you got $10 million, but you've got some crazy take, right? You know, you can do that as well. I think some sort of integration here, because you guys have this vertically integrated into a larger breadth of social interactions that are possible. That this could supercharge some of the other things that you guys are doing, and it really complements the entire stack. Where do you see most of your users coming from? Is there geographical regions, or are you attacking the same collegiate sort of age group, or do you see yourself drawing from, you know, Reddit or Twitter? Where do you see these funnels beginning?
Yeah, so to date, everything has been we've only attempted to grow in 2 markets, which has been Latin America and Indonesia. So our initial push was in Brazil, and that was just because we had fairly good understanding of the market and had confidence we could get users there. Crypto is newer, but people still had an understanding of it. And then Indonesia, for example, we organically gained traction there, and we decided to just lean in to that market. Is like my learnings from other social apps, et cetera, is like you have to kind of just pour a little bit of gasoline on a fire. Otherwise it sizzles out. Network effects are your true mode within social. We did a little small push in the US about a month ago in one college in the US, and the product wasn't ready, honestly. So people in the US truly have no idea what USDC is, like outside of crypto Twitter. So people were earning rewards and they would claim them, but then they didn't think it was real. Like the number one support question we had was, what is this USDC? Is it monopoly money? Like they didn't understand that it was spendable. So like we're adding some UX updates right now that fully abstracts it even further. So instead of calling it USDC, it's just digital dollars. You'll be able to cash it out to your Venmo account, cash out to your Apple Pay, and truly spend it. And then that'll create that like reward loop that we've seen success in these other regions. But we're waiting. We do want to push in the US, but we need to complete the user experience and actually make the rewards feel real to these users.
And so you're okay with users taking dollars off the platform, right? That there's not really a benefit to you trying to build out more features of like trying to get people to like keep their money on the platform, because a lot of times with crypto, you want to try to incentivize sticky TVL, keep users using the platform, keep users on, and keep money in their accounts. But this is kind of a one-directional flow. You'll get advertisers that are paying for visibility in this content. The creators can cash out. That really doesn't pose a detriment to the virality or the network effects here.
No, not at all. I think long tail, like we will care more about people keeping money on the platform, but right now we want to provide value to them. We basically take from the advertisers and give to the users. And this, I think once we scale larger, it opens up some very unique advertising products where we will want to keep money on products. So if I'm a user in the US, let's say I earn $30 for posting something funny, I get an ad for a hat for my favorite sports team. If I have that money still in my wallet and I can leverage the new payment protocols X402, you can basically just buy that right then and there. And like my belief is those ads will convert extremely well for D2C brands, because users are basically have what they view as monopoly money to spend, and the brand advertising knows that they can actually monetize that. So those are different ways. So it'll be a non-traditional crypto way of taking TVL, but it's new types of products that are really possible once you hit social scale that no one's done before in crypto.
Yeah. Yeah. The guy that was on before you was the founder of X402. Eric.
Good timing.
Yeah. And it makes tons of sense. Exactly what you're saying. You have dollars right then and there. It's a direct channel to buy the thing. The great episode, actually, just right before you guys would hit it off. Coinbase guy that invented it, Eric. So Sherpa, you guys, have built this. There's a social algorithm where you guys are showing certain advertisements to certain users. What could you give us kind of like an insight or visibility into the black box of the social algorithm as it exists on OverHerd? We can sort of get a sense of it on Twitter and sort of get a sense of it on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok. But being the founder, can you, if I'm a creator on OverHerd, how do I go viral?
Sure. Yeah. So it's, it's fairly simple. It's very much user curated. So we have basically, it's a time decay based off of interactions on posts, which could be upvotes, comments, etc. And then exists both within your local feed as also within your herd feed. So it's, if a post goes live, it has some sort of score and it's multiplied the more interactions it gets. And then it services to people that basically have a vector map to that for relevancy. So it's probably simpler than a lot out there. I mean, we're only a couple months old, and it's user generated, it's user curated for the most part. It's taking what's hot and servicing it to people that want to see it.
Yeah, very, very cool. Sherpa, I think that's all I've got for you now, but I'm really excited to link up. It's always a fun time, and would love to have you on again as you continue to build out the platform. Like you said, it's still so early when it comes to the adoption and the user awareness of some of these things like USDC. And that is an integral part of the entire stack. So please, any closing thoughts? And then also please tell our audience where they can find you and they can learn more about OverHerd and download it and get involved and start posting.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on the show. Yeah. The closing thoughts would be, just check the app out. We spent a lot of time on the UX to give it true Web 2 polish that hasn't been seen much in Web 3. And we hope you enjoy it. The alpha is going to be the ZK community herd. So that's going to be, I think, particularly interesting to this audience. And follow me at OXSherpa_XYZ or OverHerd XYZ, and we share all the fun product updates there. But the majority of the community is in app. We don't have your telegrams or that because the social products community should be the product.
Yeah, I love it. Sherpa, thanks so much, man.
All right, see you guys.
See you soon. Cheers, buddy. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Beauty. Man, guys, Yik Yak was I think they raised 60 million from Sequoia. They ended up getting acquired. Sherpa is a good friend, and he was founder of Yik Yak. I believe it had upwards of 300 million monthly active users. So it is, one of the staples of Web 2. And we've seen social platforms go gigaviral and sort of taper off because there's strong network effects here as they sort of compound. And what happens here is that, they reach some social flywheel. They get a lot of network effects, but you see what happens to Vine, MySpace, and then Yik Yak was part of that same crowd. And so we're really seeing Web 2 founders, the founder of Yik Yak now coming and starting a Web 3 product was really, really great to hear from Sherpa. Speaking of a little bit more in the financial world, Web 2 financial products like Robinhood are partnering with Web 3 projects like Arbitrum. And our next guest is AJ Warner of Offchain Labs, who's going to be talking about all the things that are exciting at Arbitrum and Offchain Labs and how they've been able to succeed in some of these partnerships. And yeah, we're going to bring AJ up in a little bit. I think we're just getting things set behind the scenes. So we're going to bring them up in a little bit. In the meantime, guys, let us know in the chat. What are you guys going to be for Halloween? Happy Halloween. Give me one moment here. We're going to get things rocking and rolling. Yes, AJ, we can hear you in the back end, but we are just cleaning something up on our end, I believe, and then we're going to bring you up on stage. We're good. Okay. Let's bring up AJ, and we'll have a fun combo here to close out our show. AJ, happy Friday, happy Halloween. Welcome back.
Happy Friday, happy Halloween.
TV. How you doing?
Thank you. I was here what was it like? You had Carlos and Farouk, and what was it, like a month and a half ago, maybe? It was fun.
Yeah, dude, that was a very fun episode. It was sort of a mashup. I think people joined late, people joined early. We had some tech things going on that time too. We said, all right, everyone come up. Everyone, let's just have a jam. And it was a great time. And it wasn't too long ago. But I would love to hear an update on how things have been going since.
It's been great. It's been really busy. Nothing stops in crypto. Nothing stops in Arbitrum. We've been continuing to be very focused on our core mission, which is continuing to bring the financial world on chain, using our very unique product offering across Arbitrum One. And I think I've probably told you this vision before, where we have Arbitrum One as like a core, liquid, decentralized, secure, public, credibly neutral environment, which tons of people can use. And then how do you think about how your business evolves and launching your own chain? And we think that Arbitrum is just generally the most flexible platform for that, because you don't want to sacrifice and compromise on excellence. And Arbitrum One's a top 5 blockchain by economic activity, by basically all metrics across stablecoin usage, DEX volume, perp exchange volume, etc. And then top 1, 2, 3 adopted technology stack for people to build their own chain. So that unique value proposition has been something that's been resonating a lot, especially with financial institutions. The other thing that I think differentiated Arbitrum is one of the things you're seeing typically right now amongst sort of non-crypto native companies in particular is, and it's kind of underrated, I think crypto native people have been like maybe understating it, is the EVM has turned into like a very serious moat generally. Like right now, there's like EVM compatibility or Solana are like the two main choices. Obviously, like Sui and Aptos use like Move, but I think overwhelmingly, the question that you see amongst like non-crypto native companies are like, if we have the EVM, we have a ton of flexibility with what we want to do. Obviously, if we're building on Solana, it's building on Solana and rewriting it if we don't. And what Arbitrum has done, which is unique, is we have obviously full EVM compatibility, but at the same time, we have also full support for Rust, C, and C++ contracts. Right. So if you are a traditional institution that like doesn't know Solidity, you don't have to be only doing the EVM.
It's kind of the best of both worlds.
Exactly, right? So like that mattered to Robinhood a lot, and Stylus is still very early. It's only about a bit on mainnet. I think this month was the 1 year anniversary. And like we've had to invest a lot in tooling, right? Because there's no other EVM blockchain that lets you read Rust contracts and C++ contracts in the same chain. So there's a ton that we've been working on with close partners like, Open Zeppelin and, a lot of the block explorers and the indexers, et cetera, to be able to make this possible. But that's like, I think, a very core thesis that we have, which is give the developers what they want. Don't restrict them, whether it's their own chain, public chain, their own languages, Solidity, and just make Arbitrum the playing ground for that innovation.
Very cool. Yeah. And I think what I'm hearing what you're saying is that this is not just something that you guys saw and it's kind of like a build it and they'll come, way of complementing the EVM with some other Rust features. No, this is actually a product that's in demand by enterprises that are coming and they're looking at Web3 and they want the flexibility of really all of what Web3 has to offer. You guys are there to provide it for them.
A lot of them don't know that it's an option. That's part of the work that we have to do, right? Like, again, they talk to EVM blockchains, they talk to Solana, and they think that it's a much more limited set of options. And then when I tell them that, like, look, if you want to interact with Aave or Morpho or Uniswap or any of these EVM-based applications, but also don't want to tell your your team, they have to rewrite everything. Like, you can have the best of both worlds. Like, that's like an eye-opening moment for them as they assess sort of Arbitrum across a number of different dimensions. But again, our whole thesis is the world will be powered by better decentralized systems, censorship resistant sovereign systems. But at the same time, we have to make it possible for like existing infrastructure to be able to support that. And if our requirements are that everyone has to learn Solidity in order to be able to enter in that world, it's just going to be more challenging, right? And we want to be able to be as flexible as possible. We want to be able to have systems like privacy or compliance systems. Like, every application is going to need a different thing. And, our goal with Arbitrum is just to be able to continue to provide all the different features necessary.
Yeah, very cool. And, this is something that is happening on Orbit. It's happening on Stylus. But, Arbitrum 1 continues to chug along. 2 billion transactions, quite the milestone. This was accomplished about a week ago. And so you guys are upwards of 2 billion and looking at 3 billion and beyond now. What is it like to accomplish this milestone? I'd imagine the topography of Arbitrum has changed quite a bit as of recently. Maybe you could just kind of take us through, from 1 billion to 2, how have things evolved?
So the first 3 years took us 3 years to get to the first billion.
Right.
And then it took us a little less than 1 year to get to the second billion.
There you go.
Just like in terms of growth, we've obviously 3x, or we continue to increase that growth. And we're going to continue to increase it. And I hope it takes even less time to get to the next billion transactions and further and further. Arbitrum has changed a lot. In the early days of Arbitrum, it was a time where I would say the core value proposition of Arbitrum was that it was a cheap EVM, layer 2 technology. And people liked that because Ethereum was extremely expensive, right? And they needed somewhere to go. And Polygon was able to fill that. Avalanche and Arbitrum and a couple of these other either L1 or L2 EVM architectures sort of provided this like natural respite when Ethereum was very, very expensive. Obviously, Ethereum continues to scale as well, and obviously Arbitrum's built on top of Ethereum. But the value proposition of Arbitrum has evolved to the point where today, I would say, especially in Arbitrum 1, its standalone DeFi environment, it stands itself, whether it's an L1 or L2 architecture, as a market and industry leader. And that has evolved into like the evolution for just amazing applications wanting to just tap into the Arbitrum network of liquidity. And we've seen this across a number of different dimensions. So in traditional assets, obviously, we're working closely with Robinhood. They're issuing all their tokenized equities products right now on Arbitrum 1. We're going to migrate to their own chain. But we're seeing it across other RWA axes as well. Money market funds with all the major players. We're seeing more institutions bring on private credit or other forms. One of my favorite projects, which I'm not sure how familiar you are with, is called USDAI, which is they went live about 2 months ago. They've got like a cap still through their beta period, where they have about 600 million in liquidity, and it's basically infrastructure for backing GPU loans for people who want to sort of lend against that. And that's a totally new type of market. Like this is something that crypto uniquely enables. And we want all of these things to be living on Arbitrum. So that's one area I would say of growth that we've been seeing. Another area is within the stablecoin space. So a lot of blockchains either have a lot of USDT or they have a lot of USDC. Arbitrum is unique in that it is this sort of credibly neutral playground for where people want to source their liquidity because they like and have confidence in Arbitrum. So for example, we've got about $5 billion of liquidity in Hyperliquid, all sourcing USDC from Arbitrum.
Right.
And then we have the USDT Zero protocol, which is the interoperability protocol associated with Tether, where Arbitrum is the hub chain, which means that if you go from like different like Tron to Unichain, for example, that actually settles on Arbitrum 1.
Okay.
And you see most times USDC and USDT are like these very competitive environments, but they've both are using Arbitrum for like core business operations, right? Like Hyperliquid's probably 7 or 8% of all USDC in circulation because of the value proposition of Arbitrum 1, which is secure, credibly neutral, liquid, decentralized. And again, in some ways, I would just say like 𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠. Like people have a lot of confidence. It might not be the sexiest blockchain on a day-to-day basis, but like if you talk to builders, they're like, okay, that's a very confident place for us to build, that it's not going to turn into a desert. It's not going to be falling behind on a technology perspective. So that's something that I think is like maybe very underappreciated about sort of how Arbitrum One has evolved. And the third, I would say, and this is, I think, been unique to Arbitrum since the beginning, is this constant sort of breeding ground for the best DeFi builders. Right. So if you looked at Arbitrum One in its infancy, like GMX is probably like the best example of like a DeFi primitive that like really did well. And we're seeing it now like with USDAI. I think Ostium has been really taking off a lot because of like their focus on perps for non-crypto native assets. We see other Arbitrum native DeFi projects doing well, like Variational is a new one that we're really excited about that's been building a very interesting perps model. And even like Pendle, right? So Boros, which is Pendle's new product for funding rates, and 𝘁, which is doing a very similar idea. Like they're all choosing Arbitrum as their first chain. Some of these are going to go multi-chain in nature. Some of them might stay on Arbitrum, but a lot of them are choosing Arbitrum for that reason. I think there's it's a very strong place where, a lot of this probably goes to the team that works with me that really helps and supports these builders, helps solve their earliest problems. But I think that's a very cultural I would say defining characteristic of Arbitrum is that this is where, if you can, I've had DeFi builders tell me this, the reason they like to choose Arbitrum is they can get a sense of product market fit. If you can succeed on Arbitrum, you can succeed anywhere.
Right.
And that's a sign of the competitive nature of the chain of like really good products. So, so like we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to focus on that. Like Ethereal, which is, really strong perpdex team that's building with using USDE as the base rate. They're an L3 that settles to Arbitrum One. So they're sourcing again all of the liquidity coming on chain from Arbitrum. Hyperliquid Lighter, I think, if I remember correctly, most of their deposits are coming from Arbitrum today. So that you see this as a consistent theme playing out throughout the Arbitrum DeFi ecosystem about just supporting the growth of DeFi applications. And then our goal is to merge all of these really strong builders we have with our reach and distribution of traditional financial institutions and fintechs that can both bring users capital liquidity as it becomes easier for them to get on chain. That was one of our theses, and I know I've been rambling, so interrupt me if you have any questions.
No, this is great.
Like Offchain Labs just recently acquired ZeroDev, which is like a really strong, smart account abstraction platform. And our goal was like, how do we figure out ways to accelerate getting a lot of these enterprises on chain? We want these people to be able to meet our DeFi builders. We want to be able to compound and continue to accelerate and grow how quickly these two worlds can converge together.
Have you seen an acceleration of enterprises coming to Arbitrum and asking to build maybe on the heels of Robinhood and that announcement, and now ZeroDev is on your team to support those incoming projects and enterprises?
Yeah, so we had a pretty strong pipeline, I would say, even before the announcement went live. It's probably given us like some validation, I think. But I think that you're seeing is also a huge trend increase in what, just as a function of sort of the regulatory environment, just like, established standards getting more clear. We're seeing both in fintechs and like traditional asset managers, like a huge evolution. A lot of that I think is attributable to Robinhood, maybe on the Arbitrum specific side. But broadly, I would say this kind of started once BlackRock launched a money market fund. And we've been sort of like just rolling down a hill since.
Yeah. You guys are, in the top 10 when it comes to rollups and chains and things, but more broadly, when I think about some of the early rollups, not all of them have survived. Some of the chains that are right there are newer chains that recently got a pop, and we'll see how 𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠 and how resilient those chains hold up. You guys were one of the few that, you've been up there since the beginning and you've stayed up there. Look, I'm old enough to remember when you came on and, we had an optimism representative, and look, that's not much more of a debate anymore. Right. So, you guys have stayed up towards the top of those rankings. And I think part of why, if I had to kind of put it out there, is because back then, it was a big general roll up sort of push. And, while you guys have gaming and you've got, some applications in the ecosystem, you guys became known as the home of DeFi. And that really served you well as DeFi continued to grow and really never left. Even, yield farming, all of this, things have evolved, things have changed, but DeFi is, alive and well on Arbitrum. And now you alluded to it with RWAs and the advent of, more and more of, stablecoin Supercycle is here. These things are continuing to grow. So I'm curious, I just pulled up 𝘪𝘴𝘬𝘺𝑥𝑦𝑧. You guys, again, are firmly among the top when it comes to RWAs. And so my question is, given how important DeFi is to Arbitrum, how are you looking at incorporating RWA fi, if you will, into the existing DeFi stack on Arbitrum? How important is that to you going forward?
Yeah. So I think that one of the things, I think what you were just saying kind of overlaps to what I was saying before, is like Arbitrum's almost become like a little Lindy in DeFi. And that doesn't mean we're complacent. We're always hungry. We're never going to stop. Like, it's insatiable. Like, if you just think about sort of the TAM of what we're describing, which is the convergence of traditional financial systems coming onto blockchain activity, like, this is trillions and trillions of dollars of daily economic activity.
Yeah.
Right. So like, no one's not hungry on my team anymore. Like, we're going to be relentlessly obsessed with trying to capture this. But I think that there was like a period through 2023 and 2024 where DeFi was struggling. DeFi founders kept getting like SEC notices. Everybody was like going to like nihilism and like meme coins, and like Arbitrum hasn't done well in meme coins. And there's some detriment to that because it's a huge generator of fees for the network. It can bring users on. But from a brand perspective, like, I think everybody understood, because our team kept insisting on how do we support DeFi builders, that this is something that we truly care about. And obviously we have our bets in other verticals like gaming and payments, but DeFi is a core component of what we're trying to build. And you can get a good sense of your partners in their conviction when things are not at the top of the cycle, right? And it's like really important, I think, to understand that. I think that that's why like Arbitrum does hold. Like USDAI, David, the founder, like we were chatting on a panel a few months ago, and someone, he said one thing that really stuck out to me. He's like, look, if I was trying to launch this product and I have a 10-year time horizon, the place where I know I'm going to have the most support for the next decade in the DeFi vertical is Arbitrum. So that's why it was a no-brainer for me to mint my assets there. And that's like, I think, where we're at. In terms of the convergence of RWA fi and DeFi, Steven, our CEO, likes to say, we're going to look back in 10 years and just going to laugh, and it's all just going to be called finance.
Yeah.
No one's going to call it traditional finance, and no one's going to call it decentralized finance. It's just going to be financial primitives. And it's still on the, I know like RWA.xyz tracks these things. A lot of those statistics, like Arbitrum does well in a lot of them. But those are like pretty nascent numbers, and also like kind of still irrelevant because the assets don't actually have any velocity to them. They kind of just sit as like, you can just mint an asset and like it's counted there. So I don't put too much stock or prioritization yet in those numbers, or like trying to get to the top of that leaderboard, because my goal is still to like, once there is velocity, how do I provide the most value to these issuers? And for me, that is still providing the best DeFi application experience, having the best solutions available to them, making those connections, making sure that the DeFi products are built in a way that can be compliant and compatible with RWA issuers. Because once that happens, these numbers are going to look like drops in a bucket. Right. So for me right now, I'm still much more focused on infrastructure picks and shovels than like on the RWA side, it's particularly like sort of conquering the leaderboard, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. And look, you guys, the BlackRock Biddle Fund, Securitize was the issuer, but it lives on Arbitrum. I had the head of innovation, Nick, from Janus Henderson. They have a AAA CLO fund. It's, over $1 billion in value. And he described it as a risk to not start going on chain, right? Because they've got 400 billion in assets. And if they don't put even just a little bit of that on chain, they could get innovated away. And so it was early on, it was a risk to go on chain because, you know, even $1 billion, even if you have 400 billion, it's still a lot of money. And so it's a risk if you think it's just going to evaporate, but that's not the case anymore. Now it's more of a risk to not start dipping your toes in. And so there comes an inflection point where more firms realize this and more of them follow suit. And so I'm curious just to double down on what you described as capital velocity, because I've sort of like heard and thought about this concept a little bit. That's normally a better measure of economic activity, as I understand it, because you want people buying and selling things. You don't want just capital sitting there. Is that something that you guys take into account at Arbitrum? And generally, how do you think through what the most important metrics are to measure the health of Arbitrum?
Yeah, it's a great question. So this is like also like, you know, I think Solana's been talking about this a lot about, obviously Ethereum has like, you know, 10 times the amount of TVL as Solana does, but Solana's revenue is very similar and it's a function of velocity. Right. I don't think I'm on like the same page as Solana on this, but I think there is some truth to what they're saying. And my take generally on this is revenue is certainly very important, but understanding what's behind the revenue is also very important. And again, I'm not trying to sort of like discriminate against like meme coin activity, because like, you know, first of all, it's fun, but it's also trading activity. Like people, I genuinely don't care if people should be able to do whatever they want with their money. That's like part of the reason why I built in this space. But if most of your revenue is generated from that category, even if it's within DeFi, in my opinion, it's much less likely to translate into future revenue when the entire financial system is coming on chain, because they're not like related. I don't think like meme coin trading is going to grow at the same pace if like the entire stock market came on chain, for example, because they're not correlated assets per se. Okay. Right. So when I think about how to position right now today, right, like revenue is certainly important. So like anybody who's saying like, oh, it's a revenue meta is like foolish. Like we're always in a revenue meta. Like every business is perpetually in a revenue meta, right? That's foolish. Saying that like stablecoin activity or TVL is not important is also foolish, because when these things come on chain, it's going to be very important to have the right liquidity there. So like that's equally important on a long time horizon. But specifically with like RWAs and what I was describing as velocity is you want to make sure that the form of TVL that you're projecting today is not like a vanity metric, in the sense that it can't be a part of a functioning ecosystem, right? So like if it can't leave walled gardens, or if it's just really acting as a ledger and can't even be moved in any way, right? Like it's still great that these things are like, you know, built on distributed systems, but the reality is like in terms of how I would weigh them, it matters less. So what I really am thinking about is, how do I partner with the right asset issuers, the right relationships with traditional financial institutions and fintechs to be there for them as they continue to solve these problems and help them grow their business? Because if I can do that, I know that our revenues will continue to go up. Yeah. So I'm not saying revenue is not important today. It's always important, but I pay a lot of attention to like the forms of revenue. And like, for example, with Arbitrum, a lot of the revenue that we get on the network today is a function of trading of major pairs. And the reason for that is like Arbitrum doesn't particularly have a strong like meme coin ecosystem, but I've heard from like a lot of large traders is that on chain, you can get the most liquidity on majors on Arbitrum. And like whether it's arbitrage or just trading there generally, knowing they can't get front run the way we've designed our system, that's a pretty critical component of it. And we're going to continue to do that as more and more assets, you know, continue to move on chain.
Yeah, appreciate that. AJ Warner, Arbitrum surpasses 2 billion transactions, continuing its growth as the home for DeFi on Ethereum. Really appreciate you spending the time with us today. Happy Halloween. What are you going to be for Halloween?
It's going to be Shabbat tonight for me, so I'm going to probably just be staying home, unfortunately, this year. But I'll see if we put on a funny hat or something. What about you?
I don't know. I got a skeleton somewhere on my shirt, I think,
Nice.
over here somewhere.
I'm also a massive Blue
there we
Jays fan. I grew up in Toronto.
Okay.
So Halloween and World Series on the same night is like, it's going to be weird.
Yeah. Well, it'll be fun. Have a good time, man. Really appreciate you taking the time and spending it with us. And yeah, well, looking forward to the next time you come on the show. That's
Awesome.
the Arbitrum.
See you soon.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye. Thanks, AJ. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Great show, guys. I mean, look, the Rollup TV is bringing you the best crypto native content on the planet. Where else do you have AJ, right? Chief Strategy Officer, Chief Business Officer over at Offchain Labs, company behind Arbitrum, $6 billion in liquidity, you know, the home of Hyperliquid before Hyperliquid had a home. AJ comes on, does deals with Robinhood, comes on, shares it with the Rollup. We've got Sherpa in the alpaca helmet, you know, 300 million daily active users, raised bajillions of dollars from Sequoia and the best VCs in the Silicon Valley. Now building an anonymous social finance product on Base, comes on to Rollup TV to tell you guys all about it. Look, there's so many opportunities out there. You guys might think you're drowning, right? You're just all of these things. How do you possibly parse through them? But look, there's so many opportunities out there. We're bringing it all to you. X402, we got a little thorough in for the developers here today. So guys, there's something for everyone. If you're a dev, go check out what Eric was talking about for X402. If you're a content creator, go check out OverHerd. It's on Base. Go rewatch the episode and the segment with Sherpa. He tells you exactly how to go viral on OverHerd, how to start earning money as a content creator on OverHerd, and all of the things that they have coming up next. I'm going to go link up with the alpaca himself next week. Good Idea Ventures might write a little angel check into that one. So we'll be bringing even more of that to you guys. And then obviously AJ, just a legend of the game, and a really, really nice guy to wrap up the show on a great Friday and a happy Halloween. My skeleton, where's he at? Fear Nothing. He's right there. Check him out. I think he's playing the piano. That's how we're going to end it. Guys, great show. Have a great weekend. We're going to see you next time on Rollup TV.